Okay. Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, Gab. Nice connecting with you again, at least via, StreamYard now. I'm glad you accepted to be part of this HR meet and greet. Actually, this is our second, you're our second special guest. We had about less than a month ago, we invited Tom Hogg, who is also an HR trend. I mean, actually, he has an institute. It's called HR Trend Institute. And now we're focusing on inviting, of course, people that are influencers, that are thought leaders, and that can motivate others to, with your wisdom, your best practices, what you've seen around the world lately, to everyone, to basically to most of the HR professionals, and that's what we want to do in this HR meet and greet. So I want to welcome you, Gabrielle. Thank you for connecting with us again. It's been, as you said, almost 4 years since we met.
It's been a few years. Well, good to see you. Thanks for inviting me on, and really great to spend some time with you and your community. I'm really honored that you've opened up your community. I love this idea, Angie, of connecting people from all over the world. I was on a presentation earlier today for Hacking HR, and I said that you are the Kevin Bacon of HR, where everyone is somehow connected to you. So everyone who was presenting with me, everyone knew who you were. So it was kind of a fun little moment for us when we all started to realize how connected you were. So I'm very thankful that I get to be just one of your many connections and get to chat with you and your community.
Thank you, Gab. I mean, I really appreciate what you're saying. It's like it's a small world, even though it's digital, and it could. I mean, I don't know, but it gets smaller. I don't know, because I got also the chance to meet Pamela Green, and she's helping us also on our coaching sessions that we're going to have, like a volunteer program. And Enrique from Hacking HR, he had built this humongous community from around, literally, like from every single country, I guess. And I usually I help him with a chapter here in Lima, and he's done everything with just one computer, probably about 2-3 years ago. And now this is the second global event that he had done, and you were actually on this one. So basically, the people who are connected, the ones who are going to be seeing this, watching this video later, we would love I would love to introduce to you Gabrielle, who, when I met her back about like 4 years ago, I wanted to get to know someone who is like a true millennial, even though it's not like a tag that I'm gonna put on Gabrielle, but obviously she knows everything about any other generation. But it's important to highlight that she is a millennial and that she has also studied for a long time many things about how companies, like different workplaces, can help engage with the millennial workers. And it's a trend war. It's being a trend war, millennials, centennials, whatever. And now, I just saw that you are like pivoting this tag that you have, actually, the one that I met, as a purpose. I mean, you're more into helping companies and people around the world to find their purpose. And I really love it, because companies need to start doing that from zero. It's not about a vision or a mission, but it's about how you connect from the bottom of your heart to do things in a different way, in a nicer way. And I think you are the right person to talk about purpose and to engage with any other generation. So can you please tell us a little bit on what's your project right now regarding purpose? And that's your last book, actually, right?
Yes, it is. So our most recent book is called The Purpose Factor: Extreme Clarity for Why You're Here and What to Do About It. And I love, Angie, that you just asked that question of what's that connection point? Because I get that question all the time. What is the connection between millennials and purpose? And it was a really interesting journey, because we've been working with major brands around the world on helping them understand the next generation, engaging with the next generation, leading the next generation. And through it, we kept finding that young people wanted to work for companies that had clear missions. and they wanted to be a part of that larger mission. So we started helping companies really get clarity on that mission and connect it to the mission of the individual employees. Then we started to recognize that mission wasn't really the right word, because mission was all about come join us. This is what we want to do. This is the way we're going. Whereas purpose is very individualized. Purpose is what you have inside of you to help other people. And so your purpose can be used at home with your family. It can be used in your community, in your nonprofit organizations that you volunteer for, and certainly at work as well. So as we started working with these major companies, we said it wasn't mission. It's not about come join us. It's what do we do together? And that was really where the discovery process of purpose really began, to recognize whether you were 22 or 102, you wanted to know two things. Number one, do I matter? And number two, does the work that I do matter? And when companies answer those two questions, really powerful things start to happen. So naturally, Brian, who you know, he's my husband. We run the company together.
Of course I do.
We've written the books together, and he and I are just research nerds. We started going out and saying, who's creating a system of purpose discovery? And we couldn't find it. Everyone says, find your purpose. And it sounds good to say, but it's terrible to hear, because the next question is, well, what do you mean? And how do I do that? So we spent about 5 years going through the process of looking at what's out there, what systems exist, what do ancient philosophies say, and popular religions and modern motivators, what are all of these systems have in common that we can consolidate in a way that's going to make sense, whether you're a college student looking for your purpose, a major CEO, or leading a team. And so that's ultimately why we wrote the book. The Purpose Factor was really to create a simple system for an individual, an employee, or an entrepreneur to be able to really determine what they should do next.
And the word purpose is like so meaningful, like they're very powerful. It actually gets to your mind, your soul, your heart. But you just said there's a simple factor. I mean, a simple methodology, right? But I'm pretty sure that, as you said, you read, and I know you, both of you, and I'm pretty sure you did your homework. So how can this so big and so important can also be not simple, but not easy, but doable? I mean, something that can be doable from in any company, a small, big company. Like, what is like your recipe for that?
I think it's really important for leaders at every level, whether you're leading just yourself as a solopreneur, you're leading a team of 20, or you're a multi-site or multinational organization, is to really focus on who is it that we help. A lot of times that when we talk about purpose, we talk about why, but purpose isn't about why. If you want to be motivated, ask why. Because your why could be your kids, your why could be losing weight to live longer, your why could be to be the best in your business. That's not your purpose. Your purpose is what you have inside of you to help others. And so the question isn't why, it's who. Every company and every leader in every company needs to focus on who am I and who is it that we're supposed to help. Because every problem in the world is a who problem. From global climate change to racial inequality to getting faster internet or making the best cup of coffee you can imagine, everything is about who. Who is it that you're helping? And so the more that a company focuses on who they're helping, number one, they get more clarity about how they can improve that process. But number two, their people start to get more connected, because when you meet someone, say you're working in a factory or in an office with no windows, which I did for a big part of the beginning of my career, I felt disconnected and unengaged because I didn't know who it was that I was helping. I was cold calling, I was answering emails. I felt detached from the impact of my work. And unfortunately, that's the case for many employees, and why we have a huge employee engagement crisis, because people don't feel connected to their work. And they don't feel connected to their work because they don't feel connected to the people who benefit from their work. So it really is all about who. So the more that you can bridge that connection, and we've done everything from seeing folks who not only design but build submarines, taking their HR and catering teams, people who would never really get on a ship, get out of their offices and walk around and touch the ship and understand what happens there and meet the sailors that it serves. And there's such a powerful connection point that happens when people get to meet the other side of the coin, so to speak, of if you're in HR, or you're in catering, or you're a janitor, you're still connected to the end goal because we're all working towards that. And so I think that's really the powerful element of talking about purpose in a really practical way and really focusing on the who.
That's so interesting because as you know, and as many people may know also, Simon Sinek, who is someone that we had talked about previously, he usually gets the why and everything, but I agree with you. It's not necessarily the why, it's also who, and especially as millennials, because I'm still a millennial. I mean, I'm from 82, so I consider myself a millennial, even though I might be an X. It's really powerful how this, I don't know, it's inside you, what moves you. And people wants to know if they're part of, I mean, like, if they're part of something, either small, big, or what's coming next. And even though it might not be something that can be like tangible for them, but they feel it. As you said, you feel that connection, like the keyword, as you were mentioning, the keyword here, I guess it will be connection, and then everything else should go smoothly. But the problem also, well, not a problem. Actually, I think when you were discussing this with Brian, I'm pretty sure you never had in mind that that COVID will arrive to our lives. And now more than ever, people from everywhere are having not second thoughts, but at least they're trying to think, is it like worth? I mean, is it worth for me to go and travel and leave my family for 20 days? Or should I just maybe get a little bit less salary, but I get to be closer with my family? Or I should not be doing this kind of job because it really doesn't like motivate me. So I'm going to do something else. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I mean, like these kind of questions come up during this pandemic situation. I mean, what we're doing right now, what we're facing, the entire world's facing right now. So I guess your book, your topic, and the way you are approaching this the purpose factor, I think it arrived at the perfect time.
Well, thank you for saying that. And we certainly did not, as we were writing this book, see a global pandemic coming, that's for sure. But I couldn't agree more. I think as people are working from home, they have more white space on their calendar. They're spending time with their family, really focusing in on what matters most. I think a lot of people are thinking about what's next for them and is what I'm doing making me happy? And so as employers, that should kind of scare many of them straight to think, okay, we have to retain our people because simply offering them money as a transaction isn't enough. We have to help them feel more alive, feel more fulfilled, be connected to the people that they're working with, especially when they're working from home and having to connect over a screen. And so there's certainly effective ways to do it, but I think employers really need to recognize that they can't take for granted their employees, especially during this time, because many employees are looking for something that really fulfills them. And so they're either considering entrepreneurship, going out on their own, coaching, or switching careers entirely, because every single person on the planet wants to have an impact. That's just how we're born, how we're created. No person I've ever met is like, yeah, it doesn't really matter if I'm here or not. People want to know that, again, that they matter and that what they do matters. And so the more that an individual can define that for themselves, the more fulfilled they'll be in their current job. And the better an employer does that for an employee, the more likely they're going to retain them and have a more productive, happier, and engaged employee as well.
Definitely. And actually, sometimes in Latin America, people are saying, or they maybe have doubts regarding like the studies from the US or any other countries, but usually they come from there. And they say, well, but that's not happening in our reality, right? In our culture. But what we have in common right now in the entire globe is that we want to do things that make us happy, that we feel fulfillment, that we feel like very motivated, and that no matter what age, what nationality you are, it's just a human factor, right? I mean, it's not, it doesn't have anything to do that if the studies or your book maybe is based on some studies in the US, that will actually be very similar to what we're going through right now. And we learn also from you, from studies from the US or any other developed country, and I think it's very valuable for us to be like one step ahead and kind of get to know like more information and see what we can do good for our employees here. And well, I'm pretty sure you have like many things or projects in mind with Brian. And I think also that even though companies and people and everyone is talking about purpose, it's still challenging because not everyone is willing to want to hear that, or to feel like, okay, why? I mean, I'm okay doing like this. I mean, why you have to change me? I don't know if it has to do with generation, with maybe some bad experiences at previous employers, or personal issues. How can you handle those challenges when you probably go to a company and are facing not only millennials or centennials, but baby boomers and any other generations that are more like traditional, with a traditional mindset, which is okay, but we want to move everyone, to the same direction.
Yeah, really great point. I think everything in that regard comes down to fear. What are people afraid of? And I think that this pandemic really caused a lot of people to recognize how afraid of instability they are. So many people I talked to, all they wanted was life to return to normal, even though for many of them, that was the normal that they hated. They hated their job, they hated their commute, they were looking for something else, but now all they want is life to return back to the normal that they hated. And so I think it really is such an interesting reflection on how I think humans really deal with change and frustration and how we react. And so with everything, we have a choice. So whether it is changing jobs, whether it's a layoff, whether it's a new opportunity that's presented to us, everything is a choice for us. And I think when we recognize that, I think it can empower people. But unfortunately, I think that it terrifies some other people as well. Because many employees, I get it. I was an employee for many, many years before I started my business. They teach you to sit and wait for someone to come around and either offer you a job, show you what to do next, tell you that you're qualified. And so much of our lives is spent waiting for other people to give us permission to move forward with something, which is just crazy. So I think that's why so many of us are unfulfilled and feel out of control of our life and our career, because we were told just sit and wait and someone will tell you when you're allowed to go. When in reality, when you discover your purpose, you recognize that you have a duty to use your purpose. And when you find your purpose, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to quit your job and start a company, or quit your job and move to another country and start all over, or get divorced or anything like that. It simply means you now have clarity about who you are and how you help people. And I think for folks who are in a position where they feel uncomfortable because this next move for them is blurry, they don't have a lot of clarity, it's really because they haven't done the hard work of really understanding who you are. Because if we've learned anything during the pandemic, it's that we can't control what goes on in the world around us, but we can control what goes on in this world. And so really focusing on us as an individual, that's how you become really bulletproof, to make sure that whether you have a job, you don't have a job, the job you have, you love, or you're waiting for what's next, you are fulfilled because you know that you have the ability to help people where you're at.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I cannot agree more. I guess we have many things in common. I remember our first phone call ever, and we like clicked immediately. And actually, that's something that I mean, as you said, we're not like pushing people to do entrepreneurship or anything like that, but we just want to help somehow to find their own path, right? And not necessarily what we have known traditionally means the correct thing. And that's a risk. I mean, I think fear, as you said, it's just the key for someone to move somewhere. I mean, could be horizontally or vertically. I mean, you cannot know, but at least you need to be willing to do some changes that is going to be good for you. And not only that, because once you purpose, you also help someone if they find their purpose. You help them to also kind of get a good mental health. I mean, now after like during the obviously right now during this pandemic situation, but post pandemic, I'm pretty sure.
Oh no, I think you might have frozen, Angie. I can't hear you. I'll sit and wait.
Um, I don't know what's going on, but I'm here. I'm so sorry.
You're good. That worked.
Okay, thank you. All right, so how can you link purpose to mental health now that it's so important to also take care of our own, what happens here, more important than ever.
I couldn't agree more. I think many employers are offering mental health tools and strategies for people because they recognize that when you show up for work, the whole person shows up. And there are so many interesting studies, not just about absenteeism, which we understand is someone not showing up for work. Maybe they're sick or someone in their family is causing them to not show up. But presenteeism is just as expensive because they're physically there, but emotionally absent because they're thinking about whether it's a fight that they got in with their partner or financial issues or depression they're experiencing. And I really think that the role of the employer has changed so much during this pandemic to really be so people focused. And in the people business, many of us focus a lot on process. What's the best way to do things? What's the most efficient way to do things? And we don't focus on the people that are served by that process. And mental health is really step zero to that. That if your people on your team are suffering from depression, anxiety, frustration, fear, whatever that looks like, whether it's something that you can diagnose or something that is just distracting, finding ways to be able to encourage people, I think, is really important. Purpose is such a great way to do that because when you find your purpose, especially if it's situational, so I'm not, a doctor or a psychologist, and so talking about kind of the need to go get professional help side of things. I think that there are incredible resources that are extremely accessible to people because of the internet now that before we couldn't necessarily get. But what we found when it comes to purpose is purpose really helps give context to your life. And sometimes we can feel situationally depressed or situationally anxious. We don't know what's next. We feel like what we do doesn't matter, etc. Because we don't have context. We don't know where we're going or how we're going to get there. And that's what purpose does, is it really helps bring that clarity. Because if you think about it, the last time you're probably wallowing or felt kind of down on yourself or like, oh, I don't know what to do, it was because you didn't have clarity. And purpose becomes this decision-making mechanism for you that brings you clarity. So that way you can determine, should I pick between these two jobs? Now I have a way to choose rather than going with my gut. I have a system that I can then say, does this line up with my purpose? Rather than saying, hey, this person just broke up with me and getting frustrated around the emotional side of a relationship, which is certainly extremely hard. Now you can look at it and say, well, hey, they were actually holding me back from my purpose, and seeing that as a benefit rather as something that's hurting you. So I think purpose being your perspective is one of the most powerful ways that it can help with mental health.
Wow, those are like wonderful worlds. And we're gonna do some highlights and share it on social media later after this conversation. Just one last question to finish and to let you enjoy your weekend. What would you suggest, for example, if as like some HR professionals that are trying to figure out how to start at least putting the work purpose on the table, right? How can you like, I don't know, tell me like 3 baby steps that they need to keep in mind before doing big things?
Yeah, I think especially if you're bringing in purpose. So say you're like, I see purpose, I get it, I'm following you, Gabrielle and Angie, like I'm totally with you. But my company, my organization isn't. I think one of the best things that you can do is really to start understanding what is holding your organization back from moving forward. Is it a mindset of that's how we do things around here? Is it because they've tried something before and it didn't work? I'm oftentimes in an organization the one asking why, trying to come up with new solutions. And I learned early on in my career, and I found this in working with organizations with young people as well, is that the best thing you can do before you start to introduce something is to look at the history. What's already been done? Why didn't it work? Did people try it and it was too expensive? Because the context behind it is really going to help you better understand how to introduce a new concept. I would say after you do the research and recognize what is it about purpose or mission or whatever word you're using that people feel a little eerie about, once you really analyze that, then you can start to have conversations on an individual level. Start the transformation process on a one-on-one level. And so helping people really connect with their purpose. We have a free leadership guide, which I can send you a link to. It's at purposefactorbook.com/guide. And it is a free guide for leaders on questions to ask their team to talk about purpose. And so there's questions there like, what was your most fulfilled day at work? And having a longer conversation around fulfillment. So helping managers start to make those connections. And then when you start to make those individual connections, seeing those individual transformations, you can then start to have larger conversations around how do we provide a training around this? How do we make it a part of our culture? And so it's those baby steps that often take time, and that time is what turns into transformation. And so that's certainly what I would say is a kind of a 3-step approach for folks.
That's amazing. Well, I needed to have this conversation with you. I mean, it's actually needed. So yeah, I really thank you for your time. Thank you for always, believing in what I do. And of course, I will, please send me the link and I will share it